You know, there's something profoundly important happening right now with Social Security that most people aren't talking about with the clarity it deserves. I've spent decades studying how systems work, how incentives shape behavior, and today we're witnessing changes to America's foundational retirement program that demand our careful attention. The cost of living adjustment for 2026 is 2.8%, affecting benefits for 75 million Americans. And while that might sound straightforward, the reality is considerably more nuanced. Think about this rationally. The average Social Security check is increasing by $56 monthly, yet Medicare Part B premiums rose by nearly $18, effectively consuming almost a third of that increase before you even see it. But here's what really matters, what Charlie would call the Lollapalooza effect, multiple forces converging simultaneously. The earnings test limit just jumped to $24,480. The wage cap that determines your future benefits climbed to $184,500. And if you're approaching your full retirement age this year, understanding these mechanics isn't optional anymore. It's essential to protecting what you've spent a lifetime building. Let's examine exactly what these changes mean for your specific situation, because in my experience, the devil isn't just in the details, the opportunity is too. Now let me think about this like Charlie Munger would. I've spent my life believing that understanding incentives and systems is the foundation of good decision making. Social Security isn't just a government program, it's the financial bedrock for millions of Americans, and when you understand how these changes interact with each other, you start to see patterns that most people miss entirely. The first thing any rational person needs to understand is that we're not just talking about a simple cost of living adjustment here. We're dealing with what I'd call a multivariable equation, and each variable affects the others in ways that aren't immediately obvious to someone who hasn't studied how these systems actually work in practice. Let me walk you through this methodically, the way I've always approached complex problems. The Social Security Administration announced benefits will increase by about $56 monthly on average starting in January. And if you stopped your analysis there, you might think that's reasonably good news. But that's surface level thinking, and surface level thinking has never served anyone well when real money is at stake. The deeper you dig into these numbers, the more you realize that what appears to be a raise is often just an illusion created by the interaction of different government programs that weren't necessarily designed to work together harmoniously. Consider the Medicare situation, which is where things get genuinely interesting from a systems thinking perspective. The standard monthly Part B premium is set at $202.90 in 2026, an increase of $17.90 from 2025. Now here's where the mental model becomes essential. Most Medicare beneficiaries have this premium automatically deducted from their Social Security check. So when you're thinking about that $56 increase, you need to immediately subtract that $18 Medicare increase, which means your actual purchasing power improvement is closer to $38. That's a reduction of roughly 32% before you've even thought about inflation affecting your grocery bill or your utility costs or any of the other expenses that define your daily life. This is what I mean when I talk about looking at the whole system rather than individual parts. You can't evaluate Social Security changes in isolation any more than you can evaluate a business by looking only at its revenue without considering its costs. The interplay matters enormously. For 2026, this marks the third consecutive year that Medicare Part B premiums have risen faster than Social Security's cost of living adjustment, which tells you something important about the trajectory we're on. When one component of your retirement income consistently outpaces another component of your retirement security mechanism, you've got a structural problem that compounds over time. Now let's talk about the earnings test, because this is where a lot of people make expensive mistakes through simple misunderstanding. Beneficiaries who haven't reached full retirement age have $1 withheld from their Social Security payment for every $2 in work income above $24,480. I've always believed in precision when it comes to numbers that affect your financial life, so let me make this concrete. If you're 64 years old and you decide to work and earn $40,000 this year, you're $15,520 over that threshold. Half of that amount, $7,760, gets withheld from your annual Social Security benefits. That's about $647 per month that you won't see. And I guarantee you that most people don't run these calculations before they accept that job or take on those extra hours. But here's something that demonstrates why understanding the complete picture matters so much. Those withheld benefits aren't lost forever. When you reach your full retirement age, Social Security recalculates your benefit and essentially gives you credit for those withheld amounts through a permanently higher monthly payment. Most people don't know this, and it changes the entire calculation about whether working before full retirement age makes sense for your particular situation. This is exactly the kind of second-order thinking that separates good financial decisions from poor ones. The situation becomes even more nuanced when you're in the year you reach full retirement age. People reaching full retirement age in 2026 face an earnings limit of $65,160, with $1 withheld for every $3 earned above that threshold. Notice that the penalty is less severe, $1 for every 3 instead of $1 for every 2, and the earnings limit is much higher. This graduated approach makes sense when you think about it because you're closer to unrestricted earnings, but it also means you need to track your birthday month carefully because these rules change the month you hit full retirement age. I've always maintained that the maximum benefit numbers tell you something important about how the system is structured, even if most people will never receive them. The highest benefit available at full retirement age is $4,152, rising to $5,251 if you wait until age 70. Those numbers illustrate the delayed retirement credits that accrue between full retirement age and 70, roughly 8% per year. That's a guaranteed return you won't find anywhere else in this economic environment, which is why I've always found it curious that so many people claim Social Security at 62 when waiting could dramatically increase their lifetime benefits, especially if they're healthy and have longevity in their family history. The taxation side of this equation deserves your attention too because it affects your future benefits in ways that aren't immediately apparent. The maximum amount of earnings subject to Social Security tax increased to $184,500 from $176,100. This matters if you're a high earner because it means you're paying more into the system this year, which will eventually translate into higher benefits when you retire. The Social Security benefit formula is progressive. It replaces a higher percentage of lower earnings than higher earnings. But every dollar you contribute up to that cap counts toward your future benefit calculation. Your benefit is based on your highest 35 years of earnings. So if you're still working and earning above what you made earlier in your career, you're replacing lower earning years in your calculation with higher earning years. Here's something that often gets overlooked in these discussions: work credits and how they're accumulating value. In 2026, you earn one Social Security credit for every $1,890 in covered earnings, and you can earn a maximum of 4 credits per year. So if you need to earn 40 credits to qualify for retirement benefits, that's effectively 10 years of work. But the dollar amount required to earn each credit keeps rising with wage inflation. For people working part-time or in gig economy jobs, this creates a planning challenge. You need $7,560 in annual earnings to max out your 4 credits for the year. If you're earning less than that, you're not accumulating credits as quickly as you might assume. The disability insurance thresholds changed as well, and while this might not affect everyone directly, it's part of understanding the complete Social Security picture. For Social Security disability insurance, substantial gainful activity is defined as $1,690 monthly for most beneficiaries in 2026. This matters because if you're receiving disability benefits and you're attempting to return to work, crossing this threshold could jeopardize your benefits. The system is designed to encourage work when possible, but the cliffs built into these programs mean you need to understand exactly where the lines are before you cross them. Now, I want to return to this Medicare premium issue because it illustrates a principle I've observed throughout my career: the importance of reading the footnotes and understanding what's not being said directly. When you look at why the Part B premium increase wasn't even higher, the agency notes that changes to reduce what Medicare pays for skin substitutes prevented the premium from being about $11 higher per month. This tells you that without administrative action to control costs in one specific area, your Medicare premium would have jumped by almost $30 instead of $18. The underlying cost pressures in healthcare are enormous, and they're not going away. This is a structural challenge that will continue to affect retirees for years to come. The income-related monthly adjustment amounts deserve your attention if you've had a successful career and accumulated substantial assets. About 8% of Medicare beneficiaries pay these surcharges, which means if you're filing single with modified adjusted gross income over $109,000 or filing jointly over $218,000, you'll pay higher premiums. These surcharges are based on your tax return from 2 years prior, so your 2026 premiums are based on your 2024 income. If you've had a significant decrease in income, perhaps you retired in 2025, you can file Form SSA 44 to request a reduction based on a life-changing event. Most people don't know this option exists, which means they're paying higher premiums than necessary. Let me address something that I think gets to the heart of rational decision-making around Social Security: the question of when to claim your benefits. I've watched people make this decision based on emotion, based on what their neighbors did, based on fear that the system might not be there later, based on every reason except a careful analysis of their actual situation. The mathematics are clear. If you claim at 62, your benefit is permanently reduced by roughly 30% compared to waiting until full retirement age. If you wait until 70, it's permanently increased by roughly 24 to 32%, depending on your birth year. For a married couple, the claiming strategy becomes even more complex because survivor benefits are based on what the higher earner was receiving. If the higher earner claims early and dies first, the surviving spouse is locked into that reduced benefit for the rest of their life. I want you to think about the power of compound effects over time, because that's really what we're discussing here. A $56 monthly increase might not sound like much, but over a year that's $672. Over 10 years, assuming no other increases, that's $6,720. And we know there will be additional cost of living adjustments in future years. The question isn't whether $56 matters. The question is whether you're optimizing every component of your retirement income to work in your favor. Are you claiming at the right age? Are you coordinating with your spouse if you're married? Are you managing your taxable income to avoid unnecessary Medicare surcharges? Are you working just enough to stay under the earnings test threshold if that makes sense for your situation? The earnings test brings up an interesting behavioral economics point. Many people view the withholding as a penalty and avoid working altogether to prevent it. But if you enjoy the work, if it gives your life structure and meaning, if the net income after withholding still improves your financial position, then the withholding shouldn't necessarily stop you. Remember, you're getting that money back in the form of higher benefits later. The system isn't designed to punish work. It's designed to means test benefits before full retirement age and then remove all restrictions afterward. Understanding this distinction changes how you think about the decision. I've spent decades studying how systems work, and one pattern I've observed is that the people who do best are the ones who understand the rules completely and then optimize their behavior within those rules. Social Security has complex rules, but they're knowable rules. The earnings test thresholds are published every year. The benefit calculation formula is established. The delayed retirement credits are guaranteed. The Medicare premium structure is transparent. You can plan around all of this if you're willing to do the intellectual work required to understand how the pieces fit together. There's also something to be said about the value of professional advice when the stakes are high enough. A claiming strategy mistake can cost you tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over a retirement that might last 25 or 30 years. The fee you pay a qualified financial advisor or Social Security specialist to analyze your specific situation might be the best investment you make in your entire retirement. I've never understood why people will spend hours researching which television to buy, but won't spend a few hours understanding a decision that affects hundreds of thousands of dollars of lifetime income. The final thing I'll say about all of this is that knowledge compounds just like investment returns do. Every hour you spend understanding how Social Security works, how Medicare integrates with it, how the tax implications affect your overall financial picture, that knowledge pays dividends for the rest of your life. You make better claiming decisions. You avoid costly mistakes. You know when rules changes affect you and when they don't. You can help your friends and family avoid errors. This isn't just about money, it's about competence and control over your own financial destiny. And in my experience, the people who take control of understanding these systems are the same people who end up sleeping better at night because they know they've made rational, well-informed decisions based on facts rather than fear or conventional wisdom that might not apply to their situation.